Hi, my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'm declaring my independence. Independence from what? Why, negative thoughts and energy, of course. Chief among them, hate, division, and fear. You see, I know that we're all one, and together we can solve any problem, save our planet and each other. Please, join me as we come together as one and choose a better way to be. So now, let's begin with my independence report. And welcome, everybody, to my Independence Report. I have got an extraordinary podcast for you today. We have got 5 young gentlemen, and we are going to be talking about current events, what's happening in the world, what's happening in their world, their perception of it, and how we can take their expertise and their passion to make our world a better place to be for all of us. And with that, I'm going to introduce... I've got 5 guys on the line, and they are Jordan, Isaiah, Z, Nigel, and Castile. I'm going to start with Jordan Davis Miller. His mother's been on the show, and she's an extraordinary young lady, and I knew Jordan when he was 3 years old, and he was a really cool dude then. He's a better man now, and you may have seen him. He was on, if you go to Facebook, he actually spoke during one of the protests. I believe it was today. So we're going to talk to him right now. Jordan, good afternoon. How are you, buddy?
I'm great, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me.
I got to ask you, what's it like talking in front of, there had to be several thousand people there today.
Yes, sir. It was actually yesterday.
It was yesterday?
Yesterday.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And
so what's it like?
Kevin, it's definitely a rush. It's an incredible opportunity and a really good feeling afterwards, but it is a huge rush before. But when things need to be said and things need to be done and the youth need to speak up, I'm more than happy to do it. So it was a really great experience, and it was a really great opportunity.
Well, and I have to tell you, you are one of the podcasts that I want to do in the future is to talk about your future, because it's extraordinarily bright. You are an actor, you are a singer, you're a songwriter, you are an philanthropist, you're a action guy. You do a lot of really important things for our world today. And tell us a little bit about yourself. You're going to school down in LA, and you're taking a little break now, and you're doing some really cool stuff. So tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I'm 20 years old. I go to a performing arts college called AMDA, which stands for the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, and I'm pursuing a bachelor's in fine arts. And I'm hoping to become a professional actor. I enjoy writing poetry. I previously owned a DJ business in high school, and I'm looking to get that back up again. But yeah, no, I just, my whole life, growing up, I've had 2 incredible parents, so they've given me a lot of opportunities and a lot of good perspectives, and I've had a really great opportunity to use platforms to get my voice out and speak my mind and hopefully speak in the direction of progress, which I believe I'm doing, and which I believe I want to continue the opportunity to do. So yeah, I'm home due to circumstances of COVID, and with everything that's going on in the world, it would be wrong to stay silent, especially when it affects people I consider close family, even if they're not blood, and family as well. So I've just been trying to stay very active in my voice and my actions, and how I'm using my platform to get the message out that the actions that have been going on are not acceptable. They will never be acceptable, and that we are fed up with it. And us young black men, as you guys will hear from fellow friends of mine, that we are incredible men that deserve the same opportunities to allow our shine and our voice to be heard and projected in the world.
And you brought to us, and I thank you very much for that, you brought to us 4 really cool young men, Isaiah, Z, Nigel, and Castile. Let's talk to Isaiah first. Isaiah, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Awesome. Now tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you meet Jordan, and who are you and what are you doing?
So my name is Isaiah Austin. I am a 22-year-old graduate of AMDA. I met Jordan, my fellow brother. I was actually his residential advisor. I was his RA back in school when he first came to school. And from there, it developed into a great friendship and a great brotherhood. And I graduated with a bachelor's in performing arts. I'm a singer, actor, dancer. I like to kind of do most of the things that Jordan just said. I like to give a voice to my community, people who look like me. Really involved. I'm from Hamilton, New Jersey, so I'm from the East Coast. I was born and raised in Jersey. Family guy. My parents instilled so many great values that I'm so fortunate enough to have in me. So with all of that being said, it's times like this where I feel as though our friends and our voices and people like myself and who look like myself should be using the platforms that we have to speak out on the injustices that are going on today.
You're an actual triple threat. That's what they used to call it in my day.
I would like to say so. I believe that God gave me a lot of different gifts. So it's not just about being this or that, but being this and that.
Oh, perfect. That's just awesome. And welcome to the show. You're going to have a great big impact in our world, and it starts today. And by the way, you're welcome to come on my show anytime that you want. And so
appreciate the platform.
Absolutely. So hold on there a second, Isaiah. We're going to talk with Z Abraham. Z, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. And also let me know if you can hear me okay.
You're great. It sounds awesome.
Awesome. Great. So my name is Z. My full name is Zerbrook Abraham. I was originally born in the Middle East of Africa, small country called Eritrea. And I moved over here with my parents in about year 2005, 2004. And so I ended up meeting Jordan and a bunch of the guys that are actually on the call right now, early on in life throughout middle school and then all through high school. Jordan and I the business that Jordan was talking about, we did that together, which was super awesome experience, and for us being so young in the community. So currently I am a first generation college student at the University of Washington, first in my family to attend a university, and I'm a double major in political science and finance. So I'm rising to my junior year here, so getting pretty excited for what's to come.
That's just awesome. And the University of Washington is my favorite school, and I love the Huskies. So it's great to have you on the show. And thank you for being here. And the next gentleman I'd like to introduce is Nigel. Nigel, and I didn't grab your last name, so you need to tell us what that is.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Kevin. My name is Nigel Sudarkasa.
Okay, it'll be just Nigel for me. I'm sorry.
No. It's a difficult one. I know a lot of people struggle to get it, but it's one I wear with pride.
Of course.
Yeah. I will say, just as an introduction to myself, I, similarly to Isaiah and Jordan, I go to AMDA, the American Music and Dramatic Academy. I am also a family man. I think, this whole debacle, I'd say, that's happening in America is really about family, and it's about, taking into consideration people and what they do. But just to let you know more about myself, I was born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa. I spent 18 years of my life there. I moved here in 2018. And that's the thing. I've been coming through America my entire life because both my mother and my father are Americans. But I was born and raised in South Africa. And I met Jordan Davis Miller, a beautiful man, and Isaiah on campus my first semester. And from then you could just tell that these were esteemed gentlemen. These were, men I was going to be close with for the rest of my life, and just people who had similar values to me. And yeah, since then we've kept our minds open and kept our hearts, even more open. And the conversations I have with these individuals are some that will carry me through this life. So.
Oh, that is just awesome. So we got 3 thespians, and I don't know. We'll need to talk to Castile and see. We may have 4 thespians. Castile.
Hey, what's up, Kev?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, sadly, I'm not a thespian. I'm not a performing arts major, but the other 3. But I was born in East Africa in Kenya. I lived down there for 7 years of my life. Then I moved up to the States when I was 7 with my mom. We lived in Georgia for a while. Then moved and lived in Baltimore, Maryland for a while. Then we moved to Washington for a while. And, well, as long as I've been here for about 7, 8 years, and met Jordan, I think, middle school. And we met at a choir concert. And just started chatting it up. And then turns out we actually lived a minute walk from each other. And since that day, we've just been brothers ever since. Currently, I'm attending a college in Los Angeles, Azusa Pacific. And I'm studying to become a kinesiology major. I want to become a physical therapist and help as much as I can. And that's why I'm here trying to get my voice heard, because I understand there's a lot of people look like me and just outraged. And I want to do what I can to support and give back.
Yeah, I appreciate that, young man, and I've got a question that I'm going to ask each of you in turn, because in having, and by the way, this is the first time that I've met 4 out of these 5 gentlemen, and I have to tell you, I am thoroughly impressed with who they are as men, and it makes my blood just boil when I think of, because I've talked to Jordan's mother a lot, and she lives in fear because she is afraid for Jordan, because every time he goes out into the world, something bad could happen, and it's just beyond belief that in a country like this, the land of the free, we could have people who are living in fear of their fellow citizens. And so my question for each of you in turn, starting with Jordan, is, Jordan, how do you handle this mess that we're in, and what are your plans to correct it and help it into the future?
Well, Kevin, this racism and the systematic racism and segregation and all that stuff. Segregation still exists. The segregation definitely still exists, and it's silent, and it treads underwater. So it thinks nobody can see it, but it is there and it is real. So I definitely think that what is going on right now will be a martyr for further pursuits, for these actions and for our voice and for these words. But I do think that what needs to be happening right now is that, school people empower, primarily white people empower. But school systems, education systems, our government, the cities themselves need to look themselves in the mirror and see what they are doing wrong. I just looked at a video of 3 police officers taking their batons and beating a black gentleman who was literally just standing there and try to take it as much as possible. If you see that and you think that there is not a problem, and if you see that and you think that that is what the police force is supposed to be used for, you are wrong. Your mindset is not in the correct place, and it needs to be reevaluated. And right now in the city of Seattle, what is happening right now is that people are protesting to defund the police by 50%. And because you can't defund the police 100%, because in the light of it, the police are supposed to be for the people. The police are not for the people right now. The police are the reason the people are in these situations right now. So the police need to be here for the people, and they need to mean that. They can't just say it. Mayor Durkin can't just say it. They need to be about it. And that is across the board in every state, in every capital, and in every country. The police task is police task force is for the people, to keep the people safe. And right now, the badge that police officers are donning is a sign of fear, a sign of injustice, and a sign that your voice does not matter. That is what the police task forces are standing for right now. They are not standing with us, but they have been standing against us. Now, Kevin, I tell you, I had the amazing opportunity for the community that I live in to lead a march and a protest. And we marched for about 30 to 40 minutes. And we marched a couple blocks around. And we were accompanied by 3 wonderful police officers. And I just said to them, and I said to the group, I said, I agree with the statement. Not all cops are bad cops, but this is how we progress, and this is how you take that statement and move forward with it. You turn to those officers that claim that they are good cops, and you ask them, "What are you doing to hear our voice and progress with our message?" I looked the cop right in the eye that was with us today, and he was very nice, a wonderful gentleman. And I asked him, "What are you doing today?" Because I know the fellow man and woman next to you in these badges. You go to their families' barbecues, you hug their children, you spend time with them, you drink beers with them. And if they are men and women that disagree with our statements, especially at this point, they are in the wrong. They should not don the badge. They are disrespecting the badge that is supposed to be used as a safety measure, and it's supposed to give us hope. It is doing the exact opposite, and it's because of people like them. And if you are going to sit next to them and continue to drink your beer with them and continue to let them don that badge, you are in the wrong. You are not a good cop. You are not a good cop, and you are in no way helping us, and you are not standing with us. You are against us. And I understand it is hard to speak up. I understand it is hard to raise your voice, especially if you are a white man or woman or not a brother of color, because it is scary. It is scary. And that is also why I feel like this time is different, because this time white people and non-people of color are saying, or non-black ladies and gentlemen are saying, I don't care if I'm terrified to say this, because it needs to be said. And if I'm wrong, correct me. But something needs to be said. My voice needs to be raised and used as a platform, because I am now accountable. I am now accountable for the lives that are being lost. And these are family members. These are friends. These are our friends. If Kevin, if you look at your fellow black man, if there's a gentleman that you can think of that comes to mind as a very good dear friend to you,
sure,
it could be him. It could be him next. It could be him next. And then I don't want you to have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, now I'll speak up. Okay, now I'll take action. No, action needs to be taken years ago, centuries ago. It needed to be done, but it wasn't. And this is where we are today in 2020. So we need to do it now, and we need to make sure that fellow black women and fellow black men and fellow white women and fellow white men and every other color and span and country needs to do the same thing. They need to look themselves in the mirror and say, what am I doing to progress for my fellow brother and for my fellow sister? What am I doing to make sure that their safety is of high priority to my country, to my city, and to my town and my neighborhood?
I couldn't have said that better myself, Jordan. And Isaiah, enter the conversation. How do you feel?
I definitely think a lot of what Jordan said, I agree with. I actually just posted on my Facebook about how I was my heart was heavy, because I have a lot of teachers on Facebook, and my teachers are really supportive. They support my art. Anytime I post a video of me singing, dancing, acting, anything like that, they're commenting, they're sharing it, they're saying how proud they are, they're sharing it with their students who they currently have. But ever since this whole thing has been going on, I haven't seen a lot of teachers speaking up for a community that represents half of what their classroom looks like. And if 2020 has taught us anything, it has shown us that the classroom is not only in the schools. people are learning and having class in their houses, in their homes. And teachers need to realize that they're not just a teacher, an ally, a support system in the classroom, but out here in our world. So if there was a time that we need teachers to stand up and use their voice and support their students, it's now. I think it's also important that we start having dialogues like this, having dialogues with our friends. I actually just called Jordan like yesterday or the day before and talked to him about one of our mutual friends who I feel as though isn't speaking up enough. And the fact of the matter is we can't progress unless we have those uncomfortable conversations. We have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We have to be able to address our brothers and sisters of different races and say, hey, I know you say you're my friend. I know you support my music, but can you support my life? I think the scariest thing for me as a black man when I watched the video of George Floyd was seeing him cry out for his life. And I realized, like Jordan said, that could be me. The only thing that is tying together with all of the victims who have passed away have been killed from police brutality, the only thing that's tying them together is the color of their skin. It doesn't matter if they're accomplished African Americans or if they're considered thugs in the eyes of the media or the government or the police. The only thing that's tying them together is their skin. So for me, that makes me a possibility. So walking out of my house, my mom has that same fear. What if it's me? What if it's my brother? What if it's my sister? So I think it's important for us to have that dialogue. The only thing that will help us progress is to have this dialogue. That's my take on it.
I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, I said on a podcast yesterday that if I walked into a store and the clerk looked at me, a 62-year-old short, fat white guy, and I passed him and gave him a $20 bill, and he didn't think it was real, and so he called the police. You know what would happen? The police would come, and we'd have a conversation about that bill, and we would talk about it, and then we would it would not have ended anywhere near the same way that it did for George, and that's criminal. That is just not the way that we are meant to be as human beings, as together as one, because it amazes me that he went through what he went through and died right there in front of us, and people everywhere should be outraged and should be concerned, and it's time for us to make some important changes. I agree with both of what you're saying. Z, what's your take on this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. So I 100% agree with everybody so far. And I think, first and foremost, I think with anything really, but specifically on this matter, I think something that's very strong to get a change and get something positive as an outcome is definitely like shifting everybody's mindset in terms of having more of like an empathy mindset versus sympathy, because I think when stuff like this happens, and especially nowadays when it's recorded, everything's online, you see it, it's not just a story being told. I think it's fair to say a lot of people have sympathy or they feel bad, and that's like, they feel bad and then they go about and live their normal lives the next day. And I think that's where really part of the problem is people are feeling bad and they think, oh, you know what, it's just a story, but I'm okay. Like that won't happen to me because, like that's just not my narrative. It's not in my, whatever. And I think something that will really change people's mindset overall is having that empathy and thinking, putting into perspective, if I'm a white father with, whatever, how many kids and, affluent, middle class, whatever you want to call it. And instead of, reading a story like this and thinking, oh, like, what a damn shame, that guy died. I'm not saying, at that moment, he's not racist. He's not like, supporting the police in any way by simply feeling sympathy. But I think what really matters is having the empathy and thinking, well, what if the issue really was like all these like white children were being killed by predominantly like mostly black cops? Like what if that was a narrative and I was in a situation of of that parent that's losing their kids, of that parent that has to worry every time my kid leaves the house to go to a gas station, to go do whatever, you know? And I think that will really change some people's perspective, because ultimately that's what gets people thinking. Everybody's comfortable with what they know. And, you know, I have discussions like this a lot with pretty much anything, especially on this, because it's so heavy. Like, the only way people are going to change is putting themselves in other people's perspectives, because at the end of the day, you can feel as bad as you want for Black people or whoever's oppressed in any situation, but you're never going to fully understand what certain people are going through in, like, you know, through different events. But I think at least that effort of empathy will really show your growth by understanding at least the perspective they're coming from. You know, the point of view is everything, because you can't simply just feel bad. And then I think that'll lead to later on, you know, a level of accountability and feeling uncomfortable. And like we were talking about, having those uncomfortable conversations. And, you know, because that's really where that empathy lies in, because, you know, you can have those conversations of just feeling bad, but that really doesn't solve anything. You think you're solving something by just sharing the same perspective with others that are like-minded and being like, yeah, this is the fucked up situation. And then that's it, you know. That conversation doesn't go anywhere. And then, if anything, it just makes you feel good because you talked about the event, or you talked about what was wrong, and you didn't change anything. That's part of the problem, really. You know, of course, there's people that are blatantly racist and, you know, the redneck this and that. Like, everybody knows who they are, but the bigger problem is the majority of the people, the average man or average woman that's not inherently racist, but they're not doing anything about it to change the stigma, to change what's going on. And so this level of empathy, I think, is very important. And then eventually having this, you know, level of accountability in all of our social constructs about, you know, what people are doing and who's going to hold them accountable, you know. And I think we need to redefine what that really means, because a lot of people are saying, oh, well, cops are wearing cameras. Okay, well, cameras are not really the issue. We see, like, there's video, like, I don't understand with this case, specifically the George Floyd case, there's a video of him being executed in public. Like, there can't really be any, like, much more evidence than that, you know, in terms of pure solid evidence. But it's not just, like, visually seeing. It's the level of accountability within that. Why did that cop feel that way? Why did the other cops not feel like they had to step in and they think this cop was in the right, et cetera? And, you know, like, it shouldn't have gotten to that extent. A real system would have had cops, the fellow cops that were with him, step in and be like, you know what, I think you're doing this wrong. I'm going to hold you accountable. Although we're in the same position right now, I think you're in the wrong, and I'm going to fix it before it gets bad. That should be the mentality everybody has in whatever social construct we're talking about. And that can only come with uncomfortable situations. And, you know, when you're in that situation, you don't want to tell your fellow colleague or coworker or whatever that they're wrong. You know, that's uncomfortable. But that's the only way we're going to see change. And I think, and I agree with everybody, we definitely have to have more of these types of narratives and conversations and get people uncomfortable and have more of these, you know, the riots that are coming, the points of reflections, and just overall, like, broadening our perspective on everything. You know, even if you're not directly affected, you should care, because this is the world we live in, and this is the new now. Like, this is normal. You know, this is what's going to continue to happen if something doesn't change. And whether you like it or not, like, this is reality. And really, what's going to test who we all are is how we react to things like this and what we do inherently. So I guess those are my 2 cents on that.
Well, and I'll tell you, I am absolutely appalled and astounded that there are people that could look at that video and say, well, you know, he must have done something wrong because the cops just don't do that. Well, my friend, yes, they do. And that... Exactly. That needs to stop. That bullshit needs to end, because that's just not who we are. Nigel, it's time for you to chip in here. What are your thoughts?
I will say, Kevin, this conversation is one that has needed to have been had, I think, from the beginning of this country's history. And I think just like Isaiah, Jordan, and Z noted, it comes down to education and enlightenment, Kevin. I think as like the future of this country, we have to restructure and rebuild the foundation, which is the youth. I mean, the people who lead this world into the future is who we need to be targeting and making sure that they know what happened in this country. And that means teaching history in classes to everybody, because people aren't willing to have the conversation these days. And I think it's holding us back. Personally, you can't, and I say this all the time to anyone who knows me and hears me speak about history, but you cannot change the future if you do not know the past. That is like a motto I live by. And empathy and sympathy, they're given in history. And that's why you need to learn, how to use it and learn history, because they'll teach you what you need to know. And, when you break down everything that's happening in this country, the moral of the story is peace. So, people are watching these protests and considering them violent riots. They're missing the pain, and they're missing the hurt behind our struggle. We are individuals, and we are a community that has been hurt so much, and we're tired. That is what's driving these protests. It's just people, and that's what it comes down. It's just people, and this is a time like no other. The world is witnessing a civil rights movement that is calling for unity. We're calling to be one. And that's so interesting to hear. An anti-protest. You're protesting someone's protest when our protest is for equality. So you're literally protesting against equality. You are stopping someone from being able to be on the same level as you simply because you're not used to it. And that is the problem. People aren't having this conversation. They're afraid to have the conversation because they think that the way they've learned and the way they've, gotten used to the world will change good. When you think about this world, there isn't too much greatness that has happened in the past that's been like, this is exactly what needs to stay. We are supposed to be building upon the foundations, not living on them. That is the whole point of what's going on that makes everyone so upset. These protests are not about black and white. This is about discrimination and hatred and how we will not stand for it anymore. And we don't want it for anybody. This isn't, we have labeled it and called it rightfully the Black Lives Matter movement because that is the people who have been, violated throughout history. But we are not alone. We stand for so much more than people, than what people are watching and considering for themselves. You see, we are fighting to be equal and prosperous hand in hand with those around us. So we will fight and we will voice our minds until we begin to see a change in the world. And that's the thing. We want to love. We want to love this country, but we haven't been given the opportunity to do so. We are brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers, children of this country. We all bleed the same. We all cry the same, and we can all smile and laugh the same. The future changes with us. And as a quote that I heard our former president say, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And I think that is the point. There is no blaming anybody for, this is this and this is this. This is just, let's change it. We have a problem with the world. Let's fix it. And that is what's going on. So, we are the future, and the future is united. So if you're against unity, then you're against the future of this country. Personally, that's how I feel.
Well, Nigel, that's awesome, because I have to tell you, in talking with the five of you, this country is in really good hands. We're going to talk more about that, but first I want to talk to Castile. What's your take on all this, Castile?
Well, yesterday I was talking with Jordan's dad, and he asked me how I was feeling about everything. I was just feeling like the only word that come to my mind was just tired. I'm emotionally and mentally just drained of being part of a 300-year plus war, a war that should not still be going on. And I'm also tired of it being a cycle. As Zerbrick said, we see a black man get gunned down, black woman get gunned down, black child get gunned down, and then there's a small rally of people fighting, and the next thing you know, it blows by. And then the same thing happens. Somebody else is gunned down. We rally, and then we blow by. And it's, as people are treating it as if it's a trend, or reality, it's people's lives. And it's a lifestyle that a lot of black people are living, and we're trying to fight for it. And people are just watching it blow by and think of it as a trend. And I'm tired of it. This needs to stop. I saw a post, and it was talking about this is the biggest rally that the civil rights movement has ever had, since all 50 states are involved. And I'm very happy about that, but I feel like we can't settle with that. We need to keep applying pressure to the issue, because if there's no pressure put in the issue, if people are not made to feel uncomfortable, nothing will change. Change does not come with comfort. It comes with uncomfortability. Being forced to move and being forced to change. That's the only way we can do it. And it's so hard looking at my little sister and worrying that she might get, one of her toys might get mistaken by a weapon, and she might get wrongfully gunned down like Tamir Rice did. I'm mad and tired of leaving every day, and my mom worrying that that's my last time she might see me, because I might get pulled over and a police officer might mistake me for the criminal, or think I'm threatening him. And it's all tiring that the people we're supposed to be calling when we need help are the people we can't anymore. Like I'd be scared to call police officers if anything happened, because I'm scared he's going to come to the scene, look at me, and automatically assume that I'm doing something wrong. And in me trying to defend myself, I'd get hurt or something. I'm just tired of it. It's time for a change. And it's very unnerving looking and seeing on Facebook all these people we grew up with. Me, Jordan, and Zerba, we grew up in a very diverse neighborhood in Everett. There's a lot of black, Mexican, Caucasian, Asian people. And growing up, I'm thinking a lot of these white people, or at least the ones I hung out with a lot, understood where we're coming from in the part of us. But with all this going on, you see a lot of people really showing their true colors. A lot of people aren't sharing and being protest. A lot of people are sharing, but they're sharing the wrong thing. Talking about how we're going about this the wrong way, or how we're not doing it right. Like, and realistically, they can't really tell us how to fight back, because they don't experience what we do. I fully support anybody who's willing to sit there and stand and support us. I understand that, but sitting there and telling us we need to stop doing what we're doing, or the cops was right, something like that is not okay. Because you don't have to experience what we experience every day. You don't have to worry that if you walk in a grocery store, you'll be followed because they think you're stealing, or they'll have a cop called on you because you just mind your own business. And it's just unnerving seeing people you thought that had your back or were with you not sharing. I saw a post talking about how that officer who killed George Floyd, they both actually knew each other and worked together. That goes to show you that some people that you think are there for you in today's society could have a complete ulterior motive, and that's sad. That's something we need to change. And like everybody else was saying, it all stems with educating. And I'm proud of seeing all the people who are sharing and fighting and standing up, because that social media is a huge influence. And by sharing all the things you're sharing, you are educating people. And I slightly get upset and sad when I see people post, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, unfriend me. Because in all reality, as one of my friends said, if all the people who are seeing the content agree with you, the message is not being sent out to people who need to hear it. You need those haters, you need those disbelievers, people who would not agree with you to hear your message, because you don't even know your message could spark a change within them, and that's what we need. And I'm happy seeing all the different communities coming together right now and helping support, but we need more. We need more. And it's just unnerving seeing the people who are supposed to protect us, the police officers. Right now, they're not here to protect and serve. They're here to control and patrol. They're not trying to help us. They're here to terrorize us. I saw a picture of a rally, a peaceful protest going down in Seattle, and police officers were breaking water bottles, destroying food because they needed protesters to leave, who were peacefully protesting. So instead of finding a better way of getting them to leave, they're destroying medical centers, places to get nourishment and stuff like that. And I also saw another video where protesters were speaking their mind and talking to police officers. No violence had occurred. And if one police officer starts macing, then you see the whole line of blockade of police officers macing the group. And I'm tired of seeing it. You have people trying to speak their mind, and police officers are sitting there oppressing us and trying to shut us up. And I don't see how they really expect protests to stay safe when, and and stay civil when they're attacking us. People are tired of being bullied and tired of being put down. It gets to a point where you're more mad than you are scared. You're no longer scared of the police, but mad at what they're doing, and you're done being scared and you want to fight back now. And that's why things are getting bad, because police officers are instigating and people are fighting back. And I'm not saying that police officers are starting anything. I understand there are bad people out there who are giving the protest a bad name, but the police officers are not helping. They're not helping when somebody is civilly explaining how they feel and they reach for their weapon. When you grab a weapon, that's not de-escalating any situation. That's just increasing the nerves in the situation and making people more uncomfortable and more fragile. And police officers don't understand that. And like how Zerbuk said earlier, it's all about accountability. There's a lot of officers out here who don't keep each other accountable. And I honestly do not feel safe around police officers anymore. I understand there's good cops out there, but what if a patrol car pulls up on me and there's a good cop and a bad cop? And the bad cop decides he needs to attack me in some way or form, and I have no faith that so-called good officer is going to turn his brother in, because that is what a cop is. It's like a brotherhood. They're all brotherhood. They're always going to stand for each other and fight for each other. And it's so hard believing that good cops nowadays will turn bad cops, making it all bad cops, to be honest. And I'm worried about our future. If we can't get anything changed, I'm worried about my kids. I'm worried about having to talk with my kids. Tell my kids, if you see a police officer, just mind your business. Don't act black. Like, I'm worried about having a conversation. I'm black and I'm proud. But if it's my skin color is going to cost my child's life, man, I don't even want to think about that. My sister's like, I don't even want to think about that, because it shouldn't be like that. And it's a shame that that's what we're living through right now. And I don't know. It's sad to see where we're headed, because the people we're supposed to call for help are the people we're most scared of right now.
Well, Castile, I got to tell you, you can't be tired, because you got a whole bunch of work ahead of you, because ahead of all of us, because in my opinion, and I'd like your guys' opinion on this, I think we've got to change virtually everything. We've got to change the criminal justice system to make it more fair and more equitable. We have to change the educational system. We have to make sure that kids are getting hope. I see a lot of people that don't have any hope out there because they have been beaten down. Their families have been beaten down for so many years, and generationally speaking, that they don't think that they can get the American dream, because the American dream predominantly has been a white thing, and that's got to change. That's got to stop. The healthcare system has to change. There are more people of color dying of COVID than there are of white people, and it's because of the lack of health care that they've got. We've got to change all this stuff if we're going to have a hope of moving forward as a country and moving together. I did have a question for each of you, though. The last time I got stopped by a policeman was 20 years ago. Okay, I'm not a perfect driver, but I was speeding, but it was 20 years ago, and it was a motorcycle cop, and he stopped me. I didn't think I should have been stopped, so I jumped out of my car and started walking towards him. I would like your guys' opinion. First of all, when was the last time you got stopped, and for what, if you don't mind me asking me? And would you get out of your car and start walking towards a cop? Jordan, let's start with you.
Hey, Kevin. Yeah. So I've only been stopped by a police officer once in my life, thankfully. But it was in the worst circumstance possible. And it was in Mukilteo. And the ironic thing was, I was going to speak at this is when I was doing public speaking during high school, my senior year. And I was going to speak at Kamiak High School for their Civil Rights Assembly. And it was early. So it was around, I believe, like 6:40 or something like that, because I had to be there early because there was 2 assemblies and it was in the morning. But I just bought a coffee from Starbucks, and I was pulling into the intersection, and it's a hill down, and right in the middle of the hill is the start of the school section. So it's a reduced speed section. So as I was pulling out, I was still, taking a sip of my coffee, making sure I handle that as I drive and put it down in the cup holder. And I was going too fast because I was just cruising on the brake, and I wasn't pressing down hard enough. So I was going a little bit faster than I should have been. But as soon as that happened, an officer pulled up behind me, and I pulled over into a neighborhood. And I can tell you, Kevin, this is my senior year of high school, and just an instant amount of dread and fear filled my body, and it was because of two things. One, because this is a police officer, and three things. One, it was a police officer. Two, I am in a primarily white neighborhood. And three, it was the first time I'm an African American man, and it's the first time I've ever been pulled over, and I didn't know what to do. And I was shaking, Kevin. I'm telling you, I was shaking, just because I feared for my life. And this is after all of this death and murder, hearing about Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was much earlier than that, but that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, holy shit. Excuse my language.
That's all right. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, but no, I was like, holy shit. I'm getting pulled over, and I was looking. I dared look into my mirror. It was a white cop. So I didn't know idea what to do. So I set my hands on the dashboard of my truck, and I was just trembling. And I when he walked over, I made sure he saw my hand as I lowered the window, and we had a brief conversation. He was very polite, very nice. But that's the thing. After the altercation, I sat in my truck for a minute, and I processed the whole events that went on, and that's the problem. That is the exact problem. Is that I could not breathe in those moments. I could not breathe in those moments because if I did something wrong, it could revolve in the end of my life. It could, not revolve, but it could come to an, it could lead up to the end of my life right there in a white neighborhood where I didn't know a lot of people. I didn't know if anybody was close, and I could easily been laid to rest right there, and I didn't know if anybody would have cared. So it was a terrifying experience, and it's disappointing because he was a very nice man, but he was the most terrifying thing I had experienced my senior year of high school, and as a student, and that's going to speak for all walks of kids of all ages that are black, because I'm sure when they meet the face of a officer, it is probably one of the most terrifying things that they have to see and experience, and they have no idea the man's background that walks behind that badge, but it is absolutely terrifying to come face to face with somebody like that, know that you're an African American man, and you could be walking on your own deathbed.
Absolutely, except if something bad were to happen to you, your mother's like a little bear. She'd go after him.
Yeah. No, I love my mama, but no, it's a scary life to live.
I understand. Isaiah, how about yourself?
Well, what I want to say, when you told your story about you getting pulled over, my eyes literally jumped out of my head. I'm like, you got out the car and you started walking towards the officer? Like, I can't even imagine. I was scared for you, and I wasn't even there. I can't even imagine getting out the car. I can't even imagine walking, yet alone walking towards the officer. I've been pulled over twice in my life. Luckily, both times my parents were with me. My dad was with me the first time I had my permit. And that one I was coming around the corner too fast, and the officer was just like, take it easy. And once he seen my dad was in the car, he was actually talking to my dad more than he was talking to me. Second time, maybe a couple years ago, I was with my mom and we were following my aunt, whose husband, my uncle, is a police officer, and we were heading to her house. We were leaving a store or something, and we were going through a neighborhood that was predominantly white, and I knew for a fact that I didn't do anything wrong. So when I seen the lights behind me, I was like, okay, all right. My mom is like immediately goes into a frantic, like she whips out her phone and she's like greatly like turning her camera on just in case. And I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? Like, she's like, you never know. Like, just like, let me get your information out for you. Like, she's just, and I couldn't look back then. I couldn't imagine or like wonder why she was doing all of this. Yes, I understand what's going on in the media, but I'm just like, Mom, I didn't do anything wrong. But looking back at it, I'm like, I could only imagine what she was going through in that moment, because as you've seen in the media, you don't have to do anything wrong. So luckily, my aunt, when we went back to the house, she was like, she was on the phone with my uncle, who was a cop, and just like giving him a play-by-play of what was happening and just making sure everybody was on the same page. My aunt let the cop know who pulled me over and gave him like my uncle's badge number and all that stuff. But yeah, it was terrifying for my mom. In that scenario, I wasn't too terrified, just because I did nothing wrong. But you can never be too sure. But yeah, that's my take on that situation.
And Z, how about yourself? Have you been pulled over a bunch, or how is it when you have been pulled over?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the most recent time I got pulled over, I believe, was in high school. Because in college I don't drive too much. But I guess I wouldn't say my experience itself was. I guess I would say mostly I share the same feelings as Isaiah and Jordan, because when I did get pulled over, so I guess I'll give a quick background. I was pulling out of the Fred Meyers, and this was in Everett, and it was like, I think it was midday sometime during the weekday, so there wasn't too many cars. In fact, the highway that I ended up taking a free right on was like pretty much empty, at least going my side of the highway. And for anybody that knows or is familiar with the area, Highway 99 usually like never empty. And needless to say, so I was just going about my normal day, and then I saw, like, from when I pulled out of the Fred Meyers, there was a cop that pulled out at the same time. And then when I took the right, he also took the right. And, I wasn't thinking too much of it, because I was like, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm totally fine. And then, I think I just started to worry as soon as, he also took that right onto the highway, because, you hear about these stories, you see all these horrific things of what police do to African Americans, specifically male, that weren't in the wrong to begin with, end up getting pulled over, et cetera, et cetera. And I think I was at that point, I was kind of getting ahead of myself in thought. And I guess that's the sad part, I was worrying before anything even happened. And so I just told myself to calm down, and I kept looking in my rearview mirror, kept looking back to the front of my dash. And then, I just tried to continue on until he ended up flashing his lights to pull me over. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm the only person here. There's really no one on the road. This is just terrible timing. I don't even know what I did at this point. This is pretty much, I'm not going to say worst case scenario, but getting pulled over for, that was kind of my worry that whole time. And so I made sure I was driving slow and all that, and then I guess, that didn't work. So I get pulled over, and first off, Kevin, I would never dare to get out of, no matter what I did, I would never dare to get out of my car and walk towards the police, because that's, in my mind at least, that's, that's a death sentence, In the world we live in,
I did not get out of the car. I just want to clear that up. I did not get out of the car. That is definitely a death sentence. Especially for a black
Jordan, I'm talking about Kevin, bro.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, my bad.
I'm not the smartest bulb in the world.
I'm glad you didn't.
Oh no, yeah, no, Kevin, yeah, that's a death sentence for a black man or woman.
100%.
I can believe it. Now that was Z, right? So Nigel, have we heard from you yet?
I'll just say, similarly to everybody, when you said that, about getting out the car, my jaw dropped. I was like, well, but personally, I have never been driving when I was pulled over or when we were pulled over, but I have been in the car with a friend of mine who was white, a white male. But it just, what I found interesting about the whole, circumstance was, as soon as you see the lights, there's an immediate kind of, shock that runs up your spine. And what's so terrifying about it is you don't know why. At first, like we process this information about the videos we see online and the stories we hear and the things we know, but fear comes instantaneously. You don't necessarily have a second to think about why you're afraid. You're just afraid. And I mean, that was the thing. I was sitting in the car seat, and my friend next to me is relaxed. He pulls over, he's talking to me normal, and I'm in such a state of like shock that he's even like, "What's wrong with you, man?" And you can't get the words out that you're trying to say, but it really is, when you think about people getting pulled over, that's a matter of minutes. But in those minutes, those could be your last minutes. And, as Jordan was saying, I think one of the biggest fears is you didn't say goodbye to anybody. That is heartbreaking. You didn't say goodbye because you didn't know those were going to be your last few minutes. And it's horrible to think about the people who are supposed to be protecting you. And that's the craziest thing. We, to the black man, to the black person in America, the cops don't represent safety like they're supposed to. That is the whole idea of a police officer. I'm supposed to feel safe when this person's around. To us, it's terrifying because in a matter of seconds, the good deeds you've done, the esteemed nature that you've tried to build for yourself goes out the window, and you are just viewed as a criminal. And that's the crazy, to process that information in your mind is something I don't think anybody should ever have to go through purely based on what you look like. You haven't done anything, but immediately you fall into the category of a criminal. And that word is so criminal, bad, bad, terrible. These are synonymous. So when you think of yourself as a criminal based on the fact, on an interaction that hasn't even happened yet, when you see that police officer heading towards your car, that is the feeling of pain and hurt that we were discussing earlier. That is what makes people so terrified, because you don't know what's going to happen. And honestly, to get out the car and start walking towards the police officer, as Jordan said, that is a death sentence. That's like, okay, here's the being I've tried to be for the last however many years you are. Because at this point, you could be, it ranges. You could be any age, and you'll still get treated the same. And that's the thing. It's a crazy, crazy experience to ever have, and I hope no one ever has to go through that again.
I hope you're right. Castillo?
Yeah. The experience I'm remembering, I wasn't really pulled over. I was hanging out at a park, and fair enough, it was later. It was around 8 o'clock, so it was getting darker. And I was hanging out at a park by myself. I had some issues, so I went to just clear my head. And I had about 3 officers in 3 separate patrol cars coming to around my car while I was drinking a slushie and eating a sandwich. And one of the officers were coming towards the car, and my first thought was, because I was in my mother's car, I was like, let me reach for the door because my window didn't roll down. And right before I grabbed the door handle, I was like, I can't, because immediately I thought of Rodney King. I was like, if I open this door, I step out this car, it could really end terribly for me. So I just waited for the officer to get there and just roll my window down. And he started questioning me, saying that somebody called him a suspicious black man, doing drugs by the parking lot, and he asked me if I had any drugs in the car. He wanted to search my car. I said, I have no drugs in here, but I don't think you should search my car because I don't have any drugs in here. And I pointed out my slushie and my sandwich, and he looked around and he just kept on telling me that I shouldn't be out here, and that somebody had called in that a suspicious black man was out here doing stuff. So, yep. And then he had me going on my way, but just the fear of him and seeing two other officers, so a total of 3 officers coming and surrounding my car, really sent a shockwave through me, because I was wondering, like, if I panicked more and decided to open that door, only Lord knows what would happen to me.
My
So
goodness
that was
gracious.
terrifying to me. And I'm pretty sure it was Nigel who said this, that seeing the lights of a cop car nowadays, it doesn't mean liberty or freedom anymore. It means this might be the last thing you see. You start thinking about everybody who cares about your welfare, and this might be the end of it. And it's a shame that's what we have to think about when we see the red, white, and blue.
That is just fundamentally wrong. That you guys, to a person, you should not be afraid of the police, and that's the situation we find ourselves in. I would like to, first of all, I want to congratulate each of you. You are all just really cool dudes, and you've got great futures, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these, because I would love to do more of these with you if you guys are open to it, and that we can talk in depth about more things. We're coming to the end of our time together today, but I do want to give each of you just a moment. Just give me like 30 seconds of what change do you see that we need to make now. And I'll start by saying there are 2 things that needs to be done immediately, and that is independent investigation of these acts by police officers and the elimination of chokeholds. If those need to be gone like yesterday, and if a policeman uses a chokehold on somebody, they should be in jail. That's my take on that to begin with. I've got a lot more to say, and I would like us to be able to do that some more. So, but Jordan, give me 30 seconds. What do you think?
Yeah, Kevin, I just got a question for you.
Yes,
for
sir.
a single man to be called on by a police officer, how many police officers would you consider excessive?
2.
2?
Yeah.
Well, then, Kevin, you're underestimating. Because as Castile said, he said that I believe there's 3 cars worthy of police officers. And you see in many other instances that, they bring an officer brings everybody and his mama to the party just because of one black man or a group of black men.
See,
so I would just like to say that, that definitely needs to be looked at. And, the time that police officers spend to become a police officer, one, needs to be increased. So if you take anything from this today, I believe, police need to go through training for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Physical. I'm talking physical training, understanding others. They also need to go through psychological training, because they really need to be better. They really need to be better. It's not on us. It's not on the people. It's on them.
And Isaiah.
Yes. First, I want to say thank you, Kevin, for allowing me to be on this platform and allow my voice, my African-American, young, black voice.
You want to do more?
Heard, and I would love to. Just let me know when. Let Jordan know, and I'm all yours.
Got it.
But I definitely think everything you and Jordan just said is something that definitely needs to be looked at. I feel as though police officers need to go through their training, and their protocol needs to be looked at, because even though body cams have been enforced, we still are seeing the lack of fundamental, training and protocol that goes into when these officers are arresting and quote unquote subduing or diffusing the situation. It's just not working. What I think some people can do, as far as our generation, speaking to our generation, we need to be able to have those this kind of conversation and dialogue with our peers, not only our fellow brothers and sisters who are in Black and African American, but those who are of different races, so that way we can open a dialogue, because change starts at home. Change starts amongst our friends and our family members. So I encourage everyone who's listening and everyone who's on this call right now to continue to have those conversations with your friends and your family. Thanks again, Kevin, and thanks, Jordan, for allowing me to be a part.
You anytime, honestly. Z?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kevin, again, as well. I felt honored to have a platform to be able to speak my voice and put my input on where I can, on how I feel about my community and what needs to change on these matters. I think this is really important. And really quickly, I think the thing that needs to happen now is overall like leadership and discussion within our communities, at the local level, at the state level, and as well as at the national level. Stuff like this is not becoming another story anymore. This specific case with the George Floyd case it's impacting the entire world, because the world is listening, the world is watching.
It's a tipping point.
Physically reacting. Exactly. So I think what we need right now is leadership. We need discussion within our communities and guidance overall. I think those specifics, like you said, different specific reforms on the way we train police, I think that's very, very critical and important to the overall solution. But like a lot of people have been saying, there's more than, it's not just one solution. There's going to be various solutions to all like this overall problem. And I think it's harder to implement that specific change today, but it's not hard to have discussion today. It's not hard to have somebody stand up and be a leader today. So that's where I stand right now.
Absolutely. Nigel?
Once again, as everyone else is saying, thank you, Kevin, for giving us this platform. As we're saying about change and where it starts right here with shows like this that give people, the opportunity to hear the voices of those affected. And it's so important. And I will say that just like you and Jordan, I think change starts with, the destructuralization of excessive force and unnecessary force. Chokeholds should not be, as you said, should not be something that you can use and get away with. More than required amount of people showing, police officers showing up to take on a task should not be acceptable. All it takes, when you look at it honestly, all it takes is one bullet. You don't need 20 people with automatic weapons pointed at one man with his hands behind his back. And similarly to everyone else saying, I think it also starts with screenings. We need to know who's getting the badge. We need to know who we're putting in positions of power, because that's what it is. You are powerful, but we need to know who's being put there. It starts with the psychological changes, and we need to make sure that the people who are being put there have gone through the psychological screenings and the tests and the training to earn the badge. The badge is not something that is just given. It should be earned. So thank you again, Kevin. It's been an honor being on the show and hearing everyone else.
You're so welcome. And Castile.
Hey, okay. Just like everybody said, yeah, thank you for this great opportunity. For a lot of us, we don't have much of a platform. We do share when we do have one, and by you giving us a platform, it helps a lot more. It helps give us a bigger platform to share our opinions and our thoughts on. And just what I think is important to change is just our officers, knowing who they are and holding them accountable. The officer who murdered George Floyd, if I am not mistaken, had 17 different offenses written up on him, complaints. And I believe that just like in any other job, whether it's retail, any form of customer service, if you have more than 3 complaints, you should be gone, or should be investigating more about the specific officer. And I think it's ridiculous that the man had 17 different complaints and he still allowed to don the badge and supposedly protect and serve us. So I think that's something important that should change. And also, as you said, just keeping the officers accountable, and being able to limit the amount of excessive force used in officers. I think that would be very important and very helpful in pushing forward.
I appreciate that. We've been talking with Jordan, Isaiah, Z, Nigel, and Castile. They are fine young men. We need to be proud that these kids are growing up in our society. They are going to be the people that are going to change this society. I wholeheartedly wish you guys all the best. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to give you a little applause for being who you are. You guys are just phenomenal. And Jordan is going to, I'm going to talk with you about setting up another podcast so that we can continue on this theme and continue to make a difference. So with that, I think I've lost my friends, Isaiah, Nigel, and Castile. So I still have Jordan. Jordan, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we go? Are you still there, Jordan?
No. Just thank you so much, Kevin, for allowing me and my boys to come on here and speak to you and speak our piece. And we look forward to continuously raise awareness and hold ourselves accountable for change.
And you keep standing up and talking. People listen to you. You're going to be, not only are you going to be a great actor, and not only are you going to be a great singer, but you're also going to be a community activist that is going to help our society get over this stupid place that we're at now so that we can all live together in peace, harmony, and love and all be one. That's my goal. That's my hope.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you. You
have yourself a great day, young man, and we'll see you next time on My Independence Report. Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other because each other's all we've got. See you next time on My Independence Report. Jordan, you still there?